Hey everyone, and welcome back. I think we all struggle at times with, feeling really fluent in English.
Yeah.
And we've got some material here with a technique that's like so simple. It's almost too good to be true.
Right.
It says that practicing common question and answer exchanges can actually rewire our brains for smoother conversations.
Well, what's so fascinating about this approach is that it really taps into the power of repetition and how our brains just crave those patterns,
Interesting.
It's almost like you're building this mental muscle memory for language.
Okay, so it's not just about memorizing phrases then.
Right.
It's about training our brains to respond more naturally.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that, like this rewiring idea.
Okay, well, think about it this way. Like when you first learned how to ride a bike, you had to consciously think about every single movement.
Oh, yeah.
Pedaling, balancing, steering. But over time, those actions become automatic.
Right.
And so this technique aims to do the same thing for your spoken English. By repeatedly practicing these common exchanges, you're essentially creating these neural pathways that make those responses almost instinctive.
So it's like building fluency on autopilot.
Exactly. And the source even claims that this method can actually reduce anxiety in conversations.
Oh, wow.
So when you feel more confident in your ability to respond smoothly, you're less likely to get flustered or stumble over your words.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I know I definitely freeze up sometimes when I'm trying to think of like the perfect way to say something.
Yeah.
It's like my brain goes into overdrive and I can't remember any words.
Right. That's a perfect example of how overthinking can actually hinder fluency.
Oh, really?
And so this technique encourages you to let go of that perfectionism and just focus on simply communicating your message effectively.
So how does this question-answer practice actually work?
Well, the source provides a variety of question and answer patterns that are categorized by common conversational situations. And they cover everything from talking about yourself to expressing opinions.
Discussing future plans and even handling like those unexpected situations.
So it's not just about learning a few stock phrases. It's about being prepared for all kinds of real-life scenarios.
Precisely. And by practicing these exchanges, you're not only expanding your vocabulary, but you're also internalizing those grammatical structures that make up natural-sounding English.
So let's dive into some examples then. What are some common questions that we might encounter when we're talking about ourselves? I'm curious to see how this technique plays out in practice.
Well, imagine you've just met someone at a social gathering. And they ask you something like, what do you do for a living?
Ooh, that's a classic one. I'm always curious to hear what other people do.
Right. And instead of just giving a one-word answer, you could practice a more detailed response. Like, I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing agency. I really enjoy the creative aspect of my job and the challenge of coming up with new ideas.
That sounds so much more engaging than just saying, I'm a designer.
It tells the other person more about you, and it opens up the conversation for further discussion.
Exactly. And notice how that response also incorporates some key vocabulary related to work and creativity, which reinforces those words in your memory.
That's a great point. So it's not just about practicing the answer itself. It's about all the vocabulary and grammar that come along with it.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to fluency building.
It really is.
Yeah. So let's say you want to move beyond just stating facts. And you start expressing your opinions. How might you respond if someone asked you, what kind of books do you enjoy reading?
That's a good one. I think I would say something like, I'm a big fan of historical fiction. I love getting lost in different time periods and learning about the past through storytelling. Does that sound natural?
It does. And you've even added a little bit of personality by mentioning what you love about that genre. It makes your response more memorable and engaging.
So even with these practiced responses, we can still make them our own. And let our personality shine through.
Absolutely. It's not about becoming a robot. It's about having this toolbox of responses that you can then adapt to different situations and express yourself authentically.
Okay, so we've covered talking about ourselves and sharing opinions. What about those situations where we need to discuss future plans? Like making arrangements with someone.
That's where this technique really shines because it helps you anticipate those common scenarios and have those responses ready to go. So for example, if someone asks, are you free to catch up next week? Instead of just saying yes or no, you could practice a response like, let me check my schedule and get back to you. What day were you thinking of?
That's smart. It shows that you're taking their requests seriously.
Exactly.
And it also gives you a chance to gather your thoughts before committing to anything.
Exactly. It's about navigating those social interactions smoothly and confidently. And remember, even if you don't have a perfect answer right away, having those few go-to phrases can buy you some time to think.
Speaking of sounding natural, the source also mentions the importance of using fillers in conversation.
Yes.
Can you explain what those are and why they're so important?
Fillers are those little words and phrases that we often use subconsciously to bridge those gaps in conversation. Things like, well, actually, they might seem insignificant, but they actually play a crucial role in making our speech sound more natural and fluid.
I'd never really thought about fillers before, but I can definitely see how they make a difference.
Yeah.
Like the pauses and the breaths that we take when we're speaking, they add a rhythm and a flow to our words.
Precisely. And using fillers effectively can also help convey different nuances and emotions. For instance, saying well, to be honest, before expressing an opinion can make you sound more thoughtful and sincere while using, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Create a sense of camaraderie and shared understanding.
So it's not just about throwing in random fillers. It's about using them strategically to enhance our communication.
Exactly. And the source even suggests practicing different types of fillers to see how they affect the tone and meaning of your sentences.
Oh, wow.
It's a fun way to experiment with language and discover those subtle nuances that make a big difference in how we come across.
That's really interesting. I'm starting to see how this whole question-answer practice can go beyond just improving fluency.
Yeah.
It's also about developing a deeper awareness of language and how we use it to connect with others.
That's a great observation. It's about becoming a more mindful and effective communicator overall.
No, we've talked a lot about practicing responses.
Right.
But I'm curious about the other side of the coin.
Okay.
Asking questions. The source briefly mentions the importance of asking follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Of course. So while having prepared responses is helpful,
it's equally important to remember that conversation is a two-way street.
Yeah.
Asking follow-up questions shows that you're actively listening, engaged in the conversation, and genuinely interested in what the other person has to say.
It's like that saying, to be interesting, be interested.
Exactly.
People are naturally drawn to those who show a genuine interest in them.
Right. And by asking those follow-up questions, you're not only keeping the conversation flowing, but you're also deepening the connection with the person that you're talking to. It demonstrates respect and a desire to understand their perspective.
So how can we get better at asking these follow-up questions?
Okay.
Are there any specific techniques or strategies that we can use?
One simple but effective technique is to pay close attention to what the other person is saying.
Okay.
And look for those cues or keywords that spark your curiosity.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone mentions that they enjoyed a recent trip, instead of just saying, that's great, you could ask, what was your favorite part of the trip? Or did you try any local cuisine?
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
It's about finding those little hooks that allow you to delve deeper into the conversation.
Exactly.
And encourage the other person to share more about themselves.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to ask open-ended questions that invite more than just a yes or no answer.
Okay.
For instance, instead of asking, do you like living in the city? You could ask, what do you enjoy most about city life?
I love that it opens up the conversation and gives the other person the space to share their thoughts and experiences more fully.
And here's a bonus tip. If you're ever feeling stuck, a simple tell me more about that can be a lifesaver.
Oh, that's so true.
It shows that you're interested and gives the other person a clear invitation to elaborate.
That's such a great point. It's so simple, yet so effective.
Yeah.
And it takes the pressure off of us to come up with the perfect question.
Exactly. Sometimes the best questions are the ones that simply encourage the other person to talk and share their perspective.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from practicing question and answer exchanges to incorporating fillers and mastering the art of follow-up questions.
Yes.
It's clear that this approach is much more than just a quick fix for fluency.
Yeah.
It's a holistic way to improve our communication skills on multiple levels.
It is.
But how do we actually put all of this into practice?
Well, that's a great question. The source provides some really practical tips for making this technique work for you in your daily life.
Let's hear it. I'm ready to start implementing these strategies. So how do we actually make this question and answer practice a regular part of our lives?
Well, the source emphasizes the importance of setting those realistic goals.
Okay.
It suggests starting with just 5 question and answer exchanges per day.
Okay.
And then you gradually increase that number as you become more comfortable.
5 a day sounds manageable even for someone with a busy schedule. It's like a mini workout for our English muscles.
Exactly. And just like with any workout, consistency is key.
Right.
Even a few minutes of practice each day can make a significant difference over time.
So where do we even find these question and answer exchanges?
Okay.
Do we have to come up with them ourselves?
Not necessarily. The source actually provides a wealth of examples in various categories.
Okay.
And there are tons of online resources that are available as well.
Oh, okay.
You can find websites, apps, and even YouTube channels that are dedicated to helping English learners practice these common conversational scenarios.
That's great to know. It takes some of the pressure off to come up with everything from scratch.
Absolutely. And here's a pro tip from the source.
Okay.
Record yourself practicing these exchanges.
Okay.
Listening back to your recordings can help you identify areas where you might be pausing too long, mispronouncing words, or using incorrect grammar. It's like having your own personal language coach.
I love that idea. It's like turning your phone into a fluency mirror.
Exactly.
You can really hear those little areas where you can improve.
Precisely. And by focusing on those specific areas, you can make your speech even smoother and more natural sounding.
Okay, so we've got our daily goals. We found our resources.
Yeah.
We're even recording ourselves for feedback.
Yeah.
What else can we do to really solidify this question and answer practice?
Well, the source suggests finding opportunities to use these exchanges in those real-life conversations. It recommends joining language exchange groups or online communities where you can interact with native English speakers.
That makes a lot of sense. It's one thing to practice on your own, but it's even more effective when you can put those skills to the test in authentic conversations.
Exactly. And those interactions can also help you learn about those different cultural norms and communication styles.
Oh, right.
Which is invaluable for becoming a truly well-rounded communicator.
It's like taking your fluency training to the next level. It's not just about speaking the language, it's about understanding the culture behind it.
That's a great way to put it. It's about becoming a more confident and culturally sensitive communicator.
So to wrap things up, we've learned that. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of English fluency.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those conversations flowing.